All right, good evening, Bristol. Welcome. Oh, an enthusiastic audience. Good, this bodes well for the evening. You're all hyped up on caffeine. Good. There's more caffeine in the back, should you need it. I am Jennifer Wagner, and sugar. I am Jennifer Wagner. I am your moderator for the evening. My responsibility tonight will be to ensure that your will is done. We do not have any legislative members here tonight to speak. None were able to make it, so we will not be having any legislative updates. And we're going to move right on to the beginning of the meeting, which begins with the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. So if everyone will please rise. I'll begin and join in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you look at the beginning of your town reports, you'll see a bright, colorful photo. The Select Board wishes to dedicate tonight's town meeting to Diane Cushman. Diane, would you please stand and wave? Diane is being recognized tonight for her care and compassion to those of our members of our community. She has served for many, many years as our town health officer. She served on different committees of the town, the Facility Site Collection Committee, the ARPA Funding Advisory Committee, and she's actively participated in many, numerous international humanitarian efforts. Diane, thank you for everything that you have given and will continue to give to the town of Bristol. We do not have a memorial section in our town report this year, and while many loved ones have passed on and left us this year, I want to recognize two in particular. Tom Wallace, who together with Claire has owned Wallace Realty for many years and the Bristol Village Creamy Stand, and also Mike Corey, who coached boys soccer at Mount Abraham Union High School for many, many years. Last year, when our meeting ended early, folks shared memories of George Smith, and that was my favorite part of the meeting. If we end early tonight and any are so moved to share memories of Tom or Mike, I would certainly encourage and welcome folks to stay and take the microphone and share some memories. I would like to introduce the people who are up here on stage with me. To my right is Sharon Lucia, our town clerk. Okay, you've set a precedent, now you're gonna have to applaud for each and every person. She is a rock star, I know. Our town manager is to my left, Valerie Cables. A little piece of business before I move on. This is a meeting for Bristol town residents, and only registered voters may speak tonight and may vote. Both Sharon and Valerie are not town residents. However, the group assembled tonight may permit them to speak, to answer questions. So I'm going to say if I hear no objection, then we will allow them both to speak tonight. Any objection? Okay, hearing no objection, both of them are permitted to speak today. Next, Ian Albertson is sitting next to Valerie. I was hoping to save Darla to last, but Darla Cynical is the chair of our select board. This is her last year, and this will be her last meeting. She will not be running again, so please applaud loudly to thank her. Joel Bouvier is next to Darla. John Peeker Heffernan. Dapper as always, Peeker. And Michelle Purley. A few thank yous. Thank you to Neat TV for filming tonight. Thank you to Sean. Y'all want to stay here till 11 o'clock? Sean Kim, hold your applause. We'll do one big round for all of the people I'm going to thank. Sean Kimball is here doing sound. We'll applaud later. Back there doing our concessions, Cecil Foster and the Masonic Lodge on North Street, and there are many bakers. We want to thank them very much for the time that they've donated and their service. All right, go ahead and applaud. I just want to acknowledge a few of the town employees who I see here tonight. Chris Purley, you're here. Could you give a wave? In the very back, thank you. Meredith McFarland, I saw you earlier setting up. She is in the balcony. Wave up there. And anybody else here that I've missed? Oh, and Eric Coda also up in the balcony. Take a wave. Excellent. I want to, of course, welcome all of our old and new community members tonight. And Bruce Nason, our police chief, is also over here on my left, your right. Bruce, wave. Where'd he go? Oh, he's in the back now. Oh, you're sneaky. All righty then.
Fire chief.
Our fire chief, sorry, Brett.
I think we're done.
Very good. I want to point out the location of microphones in the hall tonight. We don't have runners to run the microphone, so if you want to speak, when you wish to speak, come up to one of the microphones. You'll see right directly in front of me is one microphone. To your right is another microphone set up at the front of that aisle. On your left, there's a microphone about halfway up the aisle. That microphone can also be used. There's a microphone also situated in the balcony. People who are watching us on Zoom tonight will not be able to hear you unless you come up to the microphone and speak into the microphone. So please do that. All right, a couple of things. I already mentioned only registered voters can participate. And prior to beginning, I'm going to review just a few of Robert's Rules of Order. Whether you've not been here in a long time or this is your first time, this is a little bit of a refresher. Now, last year I took the hint. I am not going to deliver a college-length lecture on Robert's Rules this year. But I have cut it down to about half as much as I went over last year. All right, so this is how it works at town meeting. There are articles in your town report. I will read the article, then someone out there must move the article, and then another person will second it. I will reread the article, and then it can be discussed by everyone here. An amendment can be made, and the article can be voted upon. An article can be amended multiple times, but only one amendment at a time. You must raise your hand if you wish to speak, and I will recognize you. Once you speak, I'm going to recognize everybody else who wants to speak before I will come back around again to you. You may, well, under Robert's Rules of Order, you may only be heard twice, but let's just use common sense on that one, unless there's any objection to common sense. Before you speak, come up, approach a microphone, and state your first name and your last name. Sharon has to keep a typed record of what happens, and that includes the name of the person who's speaking. When you make a motion, I also need you to so move and state your first and last name. The person who seconds doesn't need to give their name. Last year, I had a habit of saying somebody's name and then making them repeat it when they got to the microphone. If I say your full name, you don't have to repeat it at the microphone. Otherwise, repeat it at the microphone for us. Makes it Sharon's job a lot easier. And I heard how much you applauded and loved her, so make her job easy. Okay, we do decide things by a voice vote here. If I'm unclear about how the vote went, I may ask you to raise your hand. That aside, anybody here is free to just shout out division of the House. And division of the House means we call for a standing vote. So that can be done at any time. Also, as members, if someone feels they want to vote by paper ballot, you'd say so. If 7 people of the audience here wish to vote by paper ballot, then your will shall be done, because sometimes people feel that voting is better done in private. So, debate on an article or an amendment on an article will continue until somebody calls the question. Well, it'll also peter out and I'll just call the vote if I don't hear any more discussion. But if someone grows tired of the debate and feels like that's enough, you can be recognized by me and then call the question. We will then vote on whether or not to cease debate. It takes a 2/3 majority to cease the debate and vote on the article. Please address your comments to me, not to each other. This keeps things nice and polite and avoids saying anything that you really ought not to say. So keep your comments germane and not personalized. Speak to the issues. And this is your meeting. I serve at your pleasure. So if you think that I've made a procedural ruling that's incorrect, call out point of order and let's just flesh it out and we'll work it out. My role is to help you accomplish your goals here today. And if you don't understand what's going on, if you don't know how to ask something or how to phrase something, just ask me and I will try to put it in the right way for you. All right, with that. All right, officially calling the meeting to order. The legal voters of the town of Bristol are hereby warned and notified to meet at Holly Hall in the said Bristol on Monday, March 4th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Said meeting to be recessed at the close of all business to be transacted from the floor to the following day, Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, for voting by Australian ballot between the hours of 7 a.m., at which time the polls will open, to 7 p.m., at which time the polls will close, for the election of officers voting on those articles so noted. So, Article 1, hear the reports of the town officers. Does anybody here move we accept the report of the town? Your name?
My name is Robert Bernstein.
Thank you. Do I get a second? All right. So, I want to make a note on the town reports. There has been an error on page 33. I'll give you a moment to flip to page 33. It is the, it's the youth center / skate park budget, the very first line, full-time labor. If you go all the way to the right, your proposed 24-25 budget is $69,804. That number is incorrect. The actual budget proposed is $49,004. So that's a reduction of about, I think, $20,800 if I've got my math correct. Any discussion or questions you have for your select board? This is, approach the microphone. And I'll enforce the first and last name rule again.
Yeah, my name is Robert Bernstein. And I have a few things to say, several observations and suggestions, mostly about our town report. And at the end of my remarks, of which I've made a copy and which I'll give a copy to you folks, you'll see that I think that I have lots more to say than I can do in this way of proceeding, which is fine. So I'm only going to talk about a few things, and then I have an idea of how to perhaps participate and help further. First, regards the minutes of how we report them in the town report each year. And I see that this is not a new way of doing things, that we don't note who has made the motion or seconded the motion, and we don't have any report of discussion at all. And I'd like to suggest that we should try to move towards those things, as some towns already do, to provide a fuller historical record of whatever discussions we have, especially when they're substantive. It's one thing to pass articles when we don't discuss them, and that should be noted. But if there's a long discussion with people with points, it seems to me we'd all be better off having an historical record of what we have said to help our town government. And I think that's enough on that, although I've written a little more about it. Second, point, Articles 11 and 12 of last year's meeting specified use of portions of unassigned fund balances for various needs. We had an interesting discussion on this, and during the discussion, some people changed their mind on how they would vote upon hearing that substantive discussion, which was based on the fact that we didn't know what the unassigned fund balance was because the audit hadn't been completed before this meeting, or at least before this report was printed. And that is the case again this year. And it's typical nowadays of towns to not get these audits of years that ended June 30th and 8 months later don't have an audit. That not only hinders the voters at the meeting the next year, it also clearly, to some extent, could be hindering budgeting process for the board, which takes place in December or November or January. So I see that we are in the same boat as many of the other towns. They quite, if they have a hired off audit in the reports I've looked at this year, which are 3 others, they don't get it done. So no different than anybody else. On the other hand, the one town I looked at that still has a board of auditors did get it done. I'm not suggesting we go back to that. There's no way we can. I'd like to, but I just know we can't. So what I am suggesting is we find a way to contract with our contractors to get this done so that we can have a real idea and real control also, and print these reports in our annual town reports.
Bob, I will say that while we aren't working with the 2023 audit, we are working with a 2022 audit. So
Yep.
we know a portion of the unassigned funds, and that's what we worked with for both this budget and last year's budget.
Well, let's see, and so that's, you're saying we're doing as well as we can.
Correct, but we would definitely like to see and work with, because it makes our jobs a lot easier,
Yeah, there
a
you go.
2023 audit.
Yeah, well, that Ian, is what I'm saying also, and so we're in the same boat, but we're not at the head of the boat, so let's see what we can do. And by the way, I said this last year also. Oh, I have some smaller questions which seem to never come up. Does the fire department flush the fire hydrants at this point?
No, the contractor does VTUMs now.
Is the contractor flushing the hydrants on a regular schedule so they're really done?
I would have to verify that, but we try to have that, at least some of them done, but I don't think they do them all every single year, Bob, to be honest with you.
In the olden days, when the fire department did it, didn't we think that it was important to do it every year, all of them, for safety?
They got flushed at least for training also, but yeah, they got flushed every year, but now the contract says that they will do them. And because of the newer hydrants, they all have to be pumped out. You'll see some of them on the Pine Street that they just did, they got the ring around them. And it says those have to be pumped out or they'll freeze. The new type hydrants can't be leaked out. The old type hydrants could drain out the bottom, the new ones can't.
We want to make sure that our hydrants are in good shape. That's the point I bring up. I just noticed I didn't ever see the fire department do it. Do we wash bridges anymore?
That's a public works question, and I'd figure it.
And did we think it was no longer necessary, or it was too much work, or
You
what?
can't put that sand into the river, because if it's the bridge, it's over a river, you can't put the water into the river.
We
So they
used to
sweep
wash
it.
them, and
They
now
sweep
we're
it.
worried about the river. So the bridges rot out faster, but that's the way of life, I guess. Thank you.
No, they do sweep them. We sweep them, but we don't wash them, because you
Yes,
can't
but-
wash the sand, which got some salt in it. If it's on pavement, it's got
I
salt
hear
in it.
you.
Can't wash it into the river.
So, Bob, Jill from VTUM says, once per year is their goal in terms of the flushing of the hydrants, and they try to do most annually.
Thank you, Ian. It's good. Good to know. Do we know how many town reports are now printed?
300 this year?
Do we know how many people came to the town office to pick up a town report? since they were allowed to get them like I did.
At least 100 so far.
Thank you. That's a higher number, and I'm glad to hear it, of course. A higher number than I would have guessed. I don't want to take
It's
any.
also available online.
Yes, and perhaps people are reading them online? Yeah, also a good point, thanks. And as you probably all know, we used to mail one to everybody, and the only ones I get in the mail are the other towns in which I own property. I like that, but I understand we're never going back that way either. I think that, you know, the more we get them out, the better citizen participation we have, so I want to do anything, I want us to do everything we can to encourage that. I have only two more things to say. I don't want to take any more of this time. It might not help us, okay? But I have, from reading the report, a much larger selection of questions I might ask and points I might make. I've decided that, as an alternative to taking this time, I'm going to invite each member of the select board individually for coffee or tea to my house in the coming months so I can discuss the town reports and town issues. And I hope these members will take this up. It's meant to be a friendly meeting and not divisive, and I then won't bother so much at this meeting, and I will find a way to have more participation, okay? I don't want to come to Zoom. I don't want to come to night meetings anymore. So that's, I want to participate. And last, though, I'm always interested in the town and business to discuss in a way that might sometimes appear critical. It's only to be helpful that I try and do this. And I want to note that at the present time, and for a number of years in the past, Bristol's reputation outside this town seems very good. Others of us might notice this also. It wasn't that way in many years past. We have an excellent reputation. So whatever faults or points I bring up that might seem critical, I also realize that in some ways things are going very well, and we should all be grateful for that, and for those who work hard to help us become this way. So I'm going to pass up the copy of my notes and keep a copy for myself. And thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any other questions? Approach the microphone, please. And state your first and last name before you ask your question.
Hi, my name is Beth Eckrews. To go along with what Bob was saying, I have a question in regards to St. Albans decided to change their meeting date to May because possibly they didn't have the information that they needed. When does this board expect to get the information that you might need to be able to answer the questions that we're able to answer tonight? Do you have any time frame?
Well, I'd say probably referring to the audit. I think we got the 22 audit in November,
Just last week.
or, yeah,
The final.
the final audit of 22 just last week, Valerie was saying.
So you're
We got the
thinking
preliminary
that-
numbers
Oh, I see.
late
About
November,
it.
early December,
I see. Okay.
and that ended June of 22.
All right. Thank
And it
you.
was almost 18 months.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you. Come on up and approach the microphone and state your name.
Yes, my name is Sarah Stott, and I really just want to commend the board and commend the staff for the report. Every year it's great, and this year, I mean, the reports are really clear. In particular, I also want to commend the ARPA process that went on, because we were asked for our opinion on what the money should be used for, and I just thought it was done really well, and just very helpful to the citizenry and apparently helpful to the select board. So I want to thank that. One of the things that I would like, and I probably could have found it out at the police meeting, but I didn't, but I understand there's a new position to help the police when they don't have to do, what is it called? You all know, community resource specialist. And I wondered if you could just tell us all a little bit more about that position and what the person will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we start with that, a lot of the credit for this town report goes to Sharon and Ian. I think, and the three of us the two on my left and Darla, we have input, but Ian and Sharon put a lot of time. You see all the photos are Ian Albertson's, and Ian put a lot of hours in this thing. And I think the report's getting better and better every year because of Ian's work. And the department heads give a lot of stuff to him, good reports also.
And to answer your question about the resource officer, it's not only a police department employee, as our chief told us earlier, it's a town employee, so you'll see it in the town budget. So as you said, there are a lot of their calls are, mental health, sort of themed calls that they have to take care of. And that affects our entire community, not just folks within the police district. So that's another reason why you'll see that as part of the town budget. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything else about that position.
Other than it's funded by the ARPA funds.
It's funded through ARPA funding for this year. And it was a recommendation from the ARPA board.
I wanted to point out that on page 94 of your report, they have put together a really nice ARPA Advisory Committee report showing how all of the ARPA monies have been spent. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Not hearing any, let's hold the vote to accept the town report. Those in favor of accepting the town report, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. I am informed that we do have a legislator here, Caleb Elder, who would like to speak. He is not a resident of Bristol, so if I don't hear any objection, we'll allow him to speak now. Any objections? That's fine. Caleb, come on up and take the front microphone.
Thank you all. Thanks for letting me interrupt the meeting. It's really great to be here. Happy town meeting day. It's always fun to make the tour of the 4 towns, and I did make it to all 4 this year. I was just up in Lincoln, and they're talking all about bridges up there. I think Lincoln per capita, boy, they've got a lot of town bridges. So they're thinking about that. So different from, Starksboro hardly has any. Anyway, I digress. I've been in Montpelier. I've been working on, housing this year. I'm on the housing committee trying to find some, nonpartisan consensus around housing that both gets rid of some of the common sense issues with Act 250 that really do exist, at the same time, honoring our natural resources and honoring the landscape we all want to preserve, and also realizing that kind of environmental stewardship has a lot to do with building close to where we work and cutting down our miles in the car and kind of having more walkable communities and kind of knowing that some of these regulations that were really in the name of environmental conservation are stopping that work. So that's hard to work on, and I've been enjoying the challenge. We'll see where we end up, but actually called into Bristol's own Bill Sayers program a couple weeks ago to talk about that, which is always, I don't get on Bill's program a lot, as you might know, but we had a lot to agree about that day, and it's been a fun opportunity for tripartisan work. I wanted to talk about taxes a little bit. We are getting some alarming numbers for property taxes this year. We have taken some drastic steps at the state level because we set a provision in place that basically set a cap to how much your rate could go up for districts, not really like our district, but because our district was kind of middle of the road in terms of the pupil weighting reform, it's kind of wonky, but there were some districts like CVU that were going to see a really big increase. And so there was the desire to level that and have it be no more than 5% a year. Unintended consequence there is in an inflationary budget, loss of federal funding, a lot of districts were hitting that number and basically just being able to raise all the money they wanted. And not in a, putting in, I don't know, unnecessary expenses kind of way, but in a, hey, let's shore up our deferred maintenance that we've been doing for, spending it on stuff that needs to be spent, but also in a way that is not what the ed fund is supposed to be used for. So we've gotten rid of that rule. Some districts are going to revote their budgets, and we're hoping that we may see $50 to $100 million of spending out of school budgets actually come down. We're also going to have to look at some other revenues because we need to not have that big property tax increase. So I just wanted to call that out. It's a alarming situation and one that I'm certainly not trying to duck from, but also don't want to. We're not done working on it yet, but it's also it's been the real challenge of the session in some ways. We did use federal money to buy down rates for a couple of years. The truth is the rates during COVID a couple of years really didn't go up much, and that was because of the application of federal rates and also because of some unprecedented budget surpluses associated with all that federal funding. So we don't have that this year, and I'm available for questions. I am going to leave some of my cards in the back. I always am happy to talk about this stuff, even if it isn't something that makes me happy to talk about. It's all hard, but it's really important. At the end of the day, it's paying for our schools. I will say, I think we need a new vision and a new paradigm for public education moving forward in Vermont, and I have more thoughts about that I'm going to wedge in the middle of your town meeting. I will leave you with just saying it's been a tremendous honor to serve the Addison 4 House District. I am not going to run in 24 for this district, and maybe I will again sometime in the future, but I did want to say that and say if anybody's interested, regardless of your political stripes or anything else, let me know. I'd love to talk to you about it. It's been hard, rewarding, fun, and as it was just said, Bristol has a good reputation in this state. I love telling people I grew up in Bristol. I love telling people I represent Bristol and the other 3 towns too. But it really is, we got a special corner of the state here, and it's been a lot of fun to be one of the folks kind of holding that banner for a few years. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your town meeting.
Thank you very much, Caleb. Before I go on to reading Article 2, I'm going to see if anybody might like to make a motion from the floor to alter our procedures here. We did this last year. The rules require me to read the article. We get a motion, a second, and then I must reread the entire article, which I don't like hearing my voice that much, and I don't think you do either. Would anybody be willing to make a motion to waive my second reading or rereading of the article before discussion? I see a hand over there. Tom Pollock makes the motion, second by Robert Berenstein. Thank you. I'm going to have people in seconds make their names known. Sharon and I just conferred, so we'll do that. Okay, wonderful. Moving on to Article 2. I will first read the article. To elect.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Did we vote to accept the report?
Yes,
Yes.
we
We
did.
did? Oh,
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Wake up.
I was thinking- we didn't change. We did the change of the money, and then
We do have to vote on the current motion.
Before you start reading.
You're right. So we have a motion on the floor to weigh, I'll phrase it for you, Mr. Pollock. If I'm appropriately expressing this, the motion is to waive the moderator's rereading of the article before discussion. Is that your motion? And Ms. Bernstein, you second that? Yes. All right. The motion is, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, then the motion to waive the moderator's rereading the article before discussion is up for vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Wonderful, thank you. Now I will proceed to read Article 2. Article 2, to elect by Australian ballot the following town officers as required by law. One select board member for a 3-year term, one select board member for a 2-year term, and one first constable for a 1-year term, one second constable for a 1-year term, one lister for a 3-year term, one town moderator for a 1-year term, 3 library trustees, each for a 3-year term, 1 library trustee for a 1-year term, 1 library trustee for a 2-year term, 2 school board members, each for 3-year terms, 1 school board member for a 2-year term, and 1 school board member for a 1-year term for the Mount Abraham Unified School District. At this point, I would like to invite anybody who is running for one of these positions. You may stand up, speak, just introduce yourselves. No politicking is allowed here because this is a polling place, but if you just want to say hi to your neighbors and say something briefly, you're welcome to stand up. Great, if you'll approach the microphone if you wish to speak.
Do we turn this one on?
Nope.
It's okay.
I can't reach. Sorry, hold on just a second. Okay. My name is Jessica Tietz, and I'm running for Select Board and also for Library Trustee.
Just say a little about yourself.
Okay. So I work at Middlebury College, and I've lived in Bristol since 2012. I brought my husband to back me up. And I'm running for the Select Board because I want to bring more transparency and more discussion.
Great, thank you. Anybody else here wish to speak? Also, if there happened to be any discussion about this, not usually.
Page 14 in the town report has the full list of candidates.
Great, thank you so much, Ian. Any discussion or questions on this article? Hearing and seeing none, then let's go ahead and vote. You have just waived my, well, no, I have to reread the darn article. We didn't waive that. Okay, Article 2, we're about to vote on to elect by Australian ballot the following town officers. Whew.
We just did vote on it.
We're not.
You don't have to read it again.
I'll have to read it again?
No, and we're not voting on Article 2, that's tomorrow.
No, we don't vote on it, fine. I'm still learning. This is just my 3rd year. I'm a baby moderator. Fine. They say no vote. We'll just say that's passed because tomorrow you vote on who you want for these various positions. Article 3, moving on. Will the voters of the town of Bristol vote that all real property taxes payable in installments shall bear interest at a rate of 0.75% per month or fraction thereof for the first 3 months, and thereafter 1.25% per month or fraction thereof from the due date of each installment, with the payment of the real property taxes and interest to the town treasurer for the town's fiscal year period beginning July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2025. Real property taxes being due in 2 equal installments on November 15th, 2024 and April 15th, 2025 by physical delivery to the town office before midnight on that date. Does anybody move this article? Can you state your name? So? Thank you. Any second?
Second. Joel.
Okay, in the back, your name on the second? Mike Brown. Thank you, Mike. We have waived my rereading, so any discussion on Article 3? Thank you. Go ahead and approach and state your name again.
Jessica Tietz. I just had a question. So these are people who are late paying their taxes, and so there could be some fiscal challenges there. Is there a cap on this amount? So as their interest accrues, is there a point at which it will stop, or does it just keep accruing until taxes are paid or the property is taken? Okay.
So for those of you who are looking down, that was a head nod, meaning yes. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing and seeing none. I don't have to, they say I don't have to reread this, fine. Beth Cruz, if you want to speak, come on up to a microphone. And I've stated your name, so you do not need to repeat it.
Is that clear? Does that mean that there is a cap or there is not a cap? There is not a cap.
There's not a cap.
And on page 40 and 41 is the delinquent tax page. There's presently $257,433.07 delinquent.
Joel, thank you. I noticed that figure.
I'll stop you to repeat your name.
Robert Bernstein, thank you. Joel, I noticed that also. Isn't that a much higher figure than we've had lately?
Yes,
And do we know why it is?
COVID.
You'll
I
see,
mean, during COVID, a lot of people struggled.
So we're going to have a good collection now that we're done?
Well,
we'd hope
Because
so.
all this is out and we have the ability to collect or to try to force collection or to have tax sale, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or discussion on Article 3?
I would just say that the town tries to work with people that fall behind. There are a number of different opportunities and ways that they can, we can help folks get caught up.
Not hearing any other discussion, comments, questions, or amendments, we will vote on Article 3. All in favor of Article 3, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Article 3 passes. Article 4, will the town limit the amount of penalty charged by the collector of delinquent taxes for payments made after the date for payment to 4% of the tax collected, pursuant to 32 Vermont Statutes Annotated, Section 1674, Sub 3, Subcapital A. Anybody move this article? State your name.
David Sharp, Bristol.
And hold on, are you moving it?
I am moving it at a different percentage rate.
Hold on, let's first get this on the floor and then you can make an amendment. So the article as well, you can move a different article, that is allowed. So that is allowed. You're the first person up. So you may, what was your motion?
Thank you. My motion is the article as written, except that it be at 1%, given the fact that the delinquent tax collector is now paid by a salary through our town taxes. There's no additional need for this onerous 4%.
Is there a second to Mr. Sharp's motion? I hear a second. Shout out your name. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. I am going to reread the motion as it's now been stated. Will the town limit the amount of the penalty charged by the collector of delinquent taxes for payments made after the due date for payment to 1% of the tax collected? Any discussion, comments, or questions?
David, I'm sorry to say I disagree with you. 1%, you owe $2,000 in taxes, 1% is $200. The tax collector has to hire the attorney, has to advertise, put it in the paper. Any attorney going to work for $200 take this case? I doubt it. I don't know if there's any in the room. I would urge the voters not to support this, because the voters, you're going to have to pay that attorney in the advertising, and then the taxpayers who have paid their taxes are going to have to fit the bill to put a place up for sale, or put the tax collector. 1% doesn't even cover to get the attorney to write all that stuff up. I just would hope you disagree, the voters would disagree with you on that tonight, David.
Yeah, I would also like to say that we have reduced the state statute allows us to charge up to 8%. And with what we've done in the past years and what the voters have voted on was to cut it to 4%. And that's what we've stuck with.
Hi, I just want to make a comment. This 4% is a one-time penalty if you haven't paid your taxes in full by April. It does not reoccur. So each year, unless you're delinquent at the April payment, whatever is due in that current year, it's a one-time penalty. The only thing that's continuing is the interest.
Other comments, questions, or discussion? Yes.
Sorry, Sean Kimball. It's actually $20 is 1%.
Excuse me. Yeah, you're right. Do the math, Joel. I'm sorry. Thanks, Sean. Yes, $20.
Joel's responsible for all the budgets.
No.
State your name.
Thank you, Dave Sharp. I'd just like clarification from the town administrator that if someone were to come in and pay their taxes the day following the due date, is it required that that be sent to the attorney? Or is there some period of time, say 1 month after taxes are due, that the town notifies an attorney?
The town attorney is only brought into the situation if we are making an active effort to collect delinquent taxes. Otherwise, there's just regular communication with the taxpayers to try to persuade them to or work out a plan to pay off what they owe.
Dave?
So that seems to conflict with what Mr. Bouvier said.
Dave, when she means actively collect, it means if we get in touch with the attorney, we're moving on to a tax sale. We try to work with the taxpayers, set up a payment plan, which most of our taxpayers have a payment plan. So if they have a payment plan, we're not gonna do a tax sale as long as they make their payments. If they don't, and it's been several years, then we'll likely contact the attorney and start a tax sale procedure.
And it comes out of
So
that
that's not what I heard from Mr. Bouvier.
But it comes out of
No,
Is
what
that
he's
correct?
saying, what he was saying is that the penalty helps pay for the attorney once we hire them, is what he's saying. That helps.
It's collected.
Mr. Berenstein, if you'd like to stand up. Thank you.
I think you said, moderator, that we were voting on an article. It seems to me we're voting on an amendment before we vote on an article, shouldn't we?
Thank you for raising the point of order. As moderator, I get to be the first to speak to the point of order. I will make my ruling, and then everyone in the assembly can speak after that, and the assembly can rule on this point of order that Mr. Bernstein has raised. So, in defense of my ruling, just because I read a warrant article, there is no requirement that those assembled here today have to actually make a motion in support of the article that I have read. Anyone here is free to make their own motion. I guess case in point, if we look back in Article 1, it actually reads here, to hear the reports of the town officers. Traditionally, everyone has ignored what it actually states on the piece of paper here and instead moves to approve the reports of the town officers. So that's an example of how you are free from the floor to disregard the warned actual article here, and as long as it's still germane. And I think that it is germane because the point of the warnings is to let the town folk of Bristol know what it is we are going to discuss here today. And we are in fact discussing, and we are discussing, let's see, the amount of the penalty charged, so people are warned, and the amount, I think that this change from 4% to 1% is not such a significant deviation from what we've been put on notice was going to be discussed here today, that this was an appropriate motion. Therefore, I ruled it in order, and that was the motion to be discussed.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take a lot of time on something, but it doesn't seem right to me at all. The warning is to let people know before they come here what we're going to be voting on. That's why if we have an amendment, we should vote on that and not disregard what the warning is.
Thank you.
And this is substantial change. It is germane, of course, but it's germane as an amendment. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I disagree. And I think we're heading in the wrong direction with that kind of stuff.
Thank you. So I'll open it up to other comments, and then we'll vote on the point of order. Anyone else to wish to make a comment? Okay, so we're going to hold a vote. Those who, in favor, aye, would be, let me see. I'm going to call it. So those who vote aye would be voting in favor of Mr. Berenstain, and I will be ruled out of order. Those voting nay, my ruling will stand. So those voting aye would be in favor of Mr. Bernstein's point of order. So those in favor of the point of order, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Nay. I hear the nays to have it. Does anybody wish to call for a division of the House? Okay, we're going to go forward. Thank you, Mr. Bernstein, for the point of order. It keeps me on my toes as well. So at this point, any more discussion on the current motion, which is a 1% penalty?
The penalty is
Yes.
only assessed on the unpaid portion of the taxes as of April 15th, not on the total amount of taxes that you were charged for that year. It's just on the unpaid portion.
Come on up and approach the microphone and say your name before you speak.
My name is Ann Wallace. So I'm pleading ignorance here. I'm hearing that traditionally, perhaps, the tax collector would be able to assess a penalty on people's unpaid taxes to pay that person, the tax collector, for his or her time in doing the work to help people pay their taxes. Or is that correct?
Yes.
And that now we actually have a small item or a large item, I haven't really looked, in the budget to actually pay the tax collector to do that work, whatever it might entail.
Yes, it's in the budget to do it in-house.
Okay. Right, okay. So right now, whether it's 4% or 1%, the assessed penalty then gets put into a fund that accumulates in case there is a need to hire an attorney, or does it go to the tax collector?
It goes into the general fund of the town budget.
Okay.
Which could pay an attorney at a later date.
Right, if it's necessary, then
it's necessary.
would it be the select board who would decide if we need to hire an attorney to instigate the tax sale or whatever it might be?
Usually that's through the treasurer, who is the tax collector.
Okay.
We'll decide okay, we've worked long enough with this person for a number of years, and and maybe in a estate sale or something, and they've decided to put it up for tax.
Okay, that's very helpful, thank you.
If I could just add that the other purpose for any kind of penalty is an incentive to pay the taxes, or rather a disincentive to not pay the taxes. And so it's to try to level the playing field a little bit more for those folks that do pay on time. So it's not really intended to be punitive, but more of an incentive to pay your taxes on time. And it's important for the operation of municipal government for that revenue to come in on time, because otherwise, if there are budget shortfalls because the taxes are not coming in as projected, then the town may have to borrow, which could incur interest charges or cut services or some other things. There are consequences, potential consequences, if taxes don't come in as projected.
Thank you. Come on up, state your first name before you speak.
My name's Erin Lathrop. The point I wanted to make was in the current economy and the situation, you're talking about all these delinquent taxes. People are really struggling right now. They're struggling to put food on the table. They're struggling to pay these increased taxes that are coming our way. I feel like to say we need more money just in case and it's not punitive, I feel sympathetic to those people. My taxes are paid currently on time. They haven't always been. There's been times where, it is what it is, and I've always paid those funds, but I think in the climate today, and with the 8% increase to our school budget and the increases that Caleb has, brought to our attention, this is a bad time for everybody, and we need to take that into consideration.
Thank you. Does anyone all right, in the back row, come on up and, great.
Hi, Mara Donnelly. Can I have a question and then a comment? So on the delinquent tax report, I don't see it noted, but I'm assuming that the asterisk means that those folks have a payment plan in place. I think I remember that from the past. Is that correct? What does the asterisk mean next to? I'm on page 40 and 41.
Yes. I see that. There's one here. 28,000. 32 West Street.
Yeah. That is correct. It is not detailed in the report, which I will fix.
That's all right, I kind of sussed that
That's
out.
good. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
What was the answer?
So with a really quick back of the envelope calculation, that looks like 90,000 of this 257,000 outstanding taxes are under some kind of payment plan. Those are rough numbers. So while that 257 might look really large, there's a good percentage of it that is being paid back and currently not under threat of using a tax collector. And I'd like to also just point out on page 114 that Have a Heart Food Shelf in 2023, they had an increase of over 30% in the numbers that they served. So while COVID may not be right here, our community is still really struggling. And I'm imagining there's some overlap between the people on 40 and the people who use the services of Have a Heart. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak and be heard? Yes, please come on up to the microphone and state your first and last name before you speak.
Yes, my name is Matt Lathrop. I was just wondering, does the town have any line item that tells how much money was spent last year on lawyers to collect delinquent taxes?
Last time Anthony gave us a report. Of course, Anthony has left us now. We haven't had a tax sale in 5 years. Oh, I believe there's one working on now. We're working on a couple now.
Any other questions? Yes, please come on up to the microphone.
My name is Catherine Wilson, and I'm also just thinking about this 1% and 4%, and what you've just said about how often a lawyer is actually used or hired. And I'm just wondering, if we were to go with the 1%, let's just say, and a person is being penalized each time they're delinquent, correct? And so that, am I understanding this correctly, that then that money would get put away in a fund, and what if you waited 4 to 5 years, like you're saying, then you'd kind of have 4%. I'm not great on math, but I'm just thinking, like, instead of that idea of like, let's just put it ahead, put it aside in case. This is a little stretch, but my thought is that we make a lot of decisions that's sort of based on that what if fear, and listening to enough people speak that people are struggling. And so what if we just put that fear aside and we just say, okay, let's just go with a lower percent, and it gets a little bit of time and we can still hire a lawyer? Just thinking that way.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments, or questions? Not seeing any. Let's move to vote. I'm going to read this because it was made from the floor. Will the town limit the amount of penalty charged by the collector of delinquent taxes for payments made after the due date for payment to 1% of the tax collected? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Sounds to me like the nays had it. Okay, so a division of the House means we'll now have a standing vote. Point of order, please.
Since we moved this to be an article rather than an amendment, if we vote no, where do we stand? In which case, we haven't set any penalty at all, I think.
Right. That's true. Or does it go back to the original?
So what I'm hearing from members of the Select Board is I will, if you defeat this particular article, I am going to read Article 4 again with the 4% as it was originally warned to the town. So we've had a division of the House called, so those who are in favor of 1%, please stand. If the Select Board will aid me in counting. Okay. You may be seated. Those voting nay against the 1%, please stand and be counted. I count more against than in favor. The nays have it. The article as proposed has been defeated. I'm now going to read Article 4 as originally warned by the Select Board. Will the town limit the amount of penalty charged by the collector of delinquent taxes for payments made after the due date for payment of 4% of the tax collected? Anybody wish to move this?
I'll move it.
I heard Michelle Purley, second. Mr. Bernstein, seconds. Thank you. Discussion. Comments, questions? I think we've pretty well discussed it. I'm going to move on to the vote. Those in favor of this article with 4%, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? I believe the ayes have it. Article 4, as originally warned, passes with 4% interest. Moving on, Article 5. Will the voters adopt the proposed 24-25 fiscal year general fund operating budget in the amount of $1,149,168, subject to modification by actions on the subsequent articles, with $962,968 to be raised by taxes through a tax rate set by the Select Board on the 2024 grand list, sufficient to raise $962,968. Does anyone move this article? Who was that? Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Your name? Ted Lyles. Thank you very much. Any discussion, comments, or questions on Article 5? Not hearing any, we'll move to a vote. All of those in favor of Article 5 say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Article 5 passes. Moving on to Article 6. Will the voters set the salaries that shall be paid to the members of the Select Board for the 2024-2025 to be $1,000 plus $25 per meeting and $35 per meeting for the chair? Does anybody move this article? Thank you. Second? Lady here? Thank you, Kathy Wilson. Any discussion, comments, or questions on this article? Mr. Robert Bernstein, take the microphone.
I think this is the same as we've paid last year. I'd like to know if that's the case.
It's not.
It's not.
Can we discuss the change then quickly?
Would you like to discuss?
Last year, Rob, it was
It's 500.
It was $515 a meeting, and to be honest with you, it was a joke. I'm sorry. I brought this article when we built the budget, or I discussed it with the board. I did some research, what the select board around in our towns around us, and the amount of work this board does. We were making $1.50, $2 an hour. I'll give you some examples. I wrote them down here. Middlebury pays their chair $4,500. Their board gets $25,000, the rest of them. Lincoln gets $2,000 apiece. Moncton, $1,200, New Haven, $2,000. Starksboro, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. I called all the town clerks, $900 a meeting plus $1,250 per hour per meeting.
900 a year.
900 a year, 900 a year plus $1,250 per hour per meeting. So if they got a 3-hour meeting, they get a check for $37.50. Excuse me, did I say 900 an hour? 900 per meeting and $1,250. 900? Let me start over here. 900 per year and $12.50 per hour per meeting. Our meetings are run at minimum of 4 hours. And it's in the budget for $7,000 a year. We spend a third of that. It still will be in the budget. We didn't increase the budget line. We just weren't spending it. And we felt it was, I've been here, going on, I guess, 12 or maybe 15 years. Beaker's been here 20 plus
20
years.
years and hasn't changed.
Beaker says it hasn't changed in 20 odd years. I'm sorry, it was a real joke. It was time. And if you,
thank you for
I'm running on opposed, and if you don't like it, write people in. I'm sorry, but it was a real joke. I'll be honest, I'll be right up front and honest with you.
Thank you, Joel.
Any other comments, questions, remarks?
I'll tell you the truth, the whole truth. Sugarcoating.
Not hearing any other comments, questions, remarks, or discussion, we will go on to vote. All those in favor of Article 6, aye. Say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Article 6 passes.
Thank you very much.
You get your money's worth, I'll guarantee you that.
They should get paid double for those agendas that have dog hearings on them.
Article 7, will the voters adopt the proposed 2024-2025 fiscal year Public Works Department operating budget in the amount of $912,554 with $785,586 to be raised by taxes through a tax rate set by the Select Board on the 2024 grand list sufficient to raise $785,586. Do I have someone to move this article? Say your name in the back. Thank you. A second. In the far back. Okay. Thank you, Beth. Any discussion, comments, or questions on this article? Hearing nothing, we will vote. All those in favor of Article 7, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Article 7 is passed. Article 8, will the voters adopt the proposed 2024-25 fiscal year Arts, Parks, and Recreation Department budget in the amount of $415,076 with $302,486 to be raised by taxes through a tax rate set by the Select Board on the 2024 grand list, sufficient to raise $302,486. I want to first get a motion and a second on this, and then I will have someone amend it to reflect the change in the youth department salary line. So if we could just first take a motion and a second on it as it's written. Thank you. In blue, state your name. Thank you. And a second? Thank you very much. All right. So with that, I'll take any discussion or amendments. Anybody wish to amend it? Ian?
I'll amend it.
Thank you. What's your amendment?
What are our numbers here? Okay, I'll take a look. Let's see, so in the amount of 393,419, with 280,829 to be raised by taxes, sufficient to raise 280,829.
Thank you, and that's a corrective amendment, is that right?
Correct.
Anybody second that amendment? In the very back, state your name. Thank you, Chris. Any discussion, comments, or questions on this article as amended? We're going to vote on the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the whole article. Yeah, so just on the amendment, any questions, comments, or discussion? Yes, Valerie.
I just want to point out that the error was found, the part-time position that is proposed for the teen center was double counted. It's a position that's proposed at 20 hours per week for $20. That amounts to $20,800, and it was inadvertently double counted in the overall salaries line and plus an additional line for that position. And so when you subtract that, it decreases the budget by that amount.
Thank you, Valerie. Any other comments, discussions, questions on the amendment itself? Okay, hearing none, we're going to vote on the amendment now. After the amendment, if that passes or not, we will vote on the original. So the amendment, how does the town vote? Do you vote in favor of amending the amount in the budget from $415,076 down to $393,419 with the amount to be raised, amending from $302,486 down to $280,829? Those in favor of that amendment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. So with the amendment, we're now going to vote on the, well, I'll see if there's any discussion on the article as a whole before we vote on that article as amended. Any discussion, comments, or questions? Yes, Beth Eckers, come on up to the microphone to talk. Oh, point of order.
Did we discuss that? Or can we discuss that amendment? Or should we discuss it? I don't know. I'm just saying, we voted on it and I didn't hear anything about a discussion about it.
That's all right. I believe I did give the.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. I did ask for discussion. I didn't hear any. I can always wait longer to get a response.
I provided the clarification.
Thank you. That's right. Valerie did provide the clarification during the discussion. Any discussion now on the article as amended? Comments or questions? I'm giving a pregnant pause. Everyone has an opportunity. Okay, not seeing any hands, we're going to move on and vote Article 8 as it is amended. I will read it since it was just amended. Will the voters adopt the proposed 2024-25 fiscal year Arts, Parks, and Recreation Department budget in the amount of $393,419 with the amount of $280,829 to be raised through taxes through a tax rate set by the Select Board on the 2024 grand list sufficient to raise $280,829. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Article 8 as amended is passed. Article 9. Will the voters authorize the transfer of $200,000 of the June 30th, 2022 general fund unassigned fund balance to the various town reserved fund accounts as noted? So the reserve funds, the Capital Sidewalk Fund, $10,000, Capital Technology Fund, $10,000, Capital Building and Maintenance Fund, $40,000, Capital Road Fund, $100,000, Capital Paving Fund, $30,000, and the Cemetery Fund, $10,000, for a total of $200,000. Will someone move this article? Thank you very much. Second. Who hasn't second? Right in the front. Yep, you. Thank you, Ted. All right, so any discussion, comments, questions about this article, Article 9? Yes, Ann, come on up to the microphone, Ann Wallace.
Ann Wallace, I'm just curious, how much is in the unassigned fund balance from June 30, 2022?
It's around 395,000. We have to keep roughly 5% for rainy day fund. And the reason the number is so high is because we've had job vacancies, which attributes to that, which attributes to extra money. We've had department heads who come in under budget, and we've also had more revenue than we anticipated. So it's not that we're over budgeting to have that money to put aside to bolster our funds. It's that money's not being spent.
It's also cumulative, so it includes unassigned funds from the prior year.
Robert Berenstain, go ahead and take the mic.
Yeah, again, this is the unassigned balance that we know of, that Peter has spoken of, from June 30th, 2022. It's unlikely, but there could be no fund balance as of the moment, right? Because we don't know the 2023 fund balance yet. So I just point this out as the same problem we've occurred before. That's not saying we shouldn't vote for this. That's saying, unless I'm mistaken in this, that we really don't know what the fund balance is.
We definitely do not know what the one is for 2023. That is correct.
You may, seeing no one else, I'll let you speak a second time.
I'm sorry. The good answer last year was, if we don't have a fund balance, we won't do it. This is just an authorization to do it, and that was a good answer for the same problem last year. Do we all understand that, I think? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, please come on to a microphone. You come straight down the front. State your name first.
Peter Marsh. If this is passed, will those funds eliminate the need to raise new taxes for the amount that's going into to the funds? So if we transfer $10,000 from the into the sidewalk fund, does that preclude having to raise $10,000 from taxes?
No,
Or does it just
that's
augment?
in addition to
Just augments the fund.
to bolster the funds, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion?
This money is put into funds that we see where we're going to need more money. And that's what we're looking to do to bolster those funds without increasing taxes.
As you can see, the Capital Road Fund, we put quite a lot in it. We have some large projects, Briggs Hill, Basin Street to do. So that's why we upped that, to use a lot of portion of that reserve fund 2022 balance into that fund.
Anyone else wish to speak? Not seeing anyone, we will vote on Article 9. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Article 9 passes. Article 10. Will the voters authorize the establishment of a new recreation equipment and facilities capital fund for the Recreation Department and authorize the transfer of $10,000 from the June 30th, 2022 General Fund unassigned fund balance to it? Do I have anyone who will move this article? Thank you. State your name. Thank you, Taylor. Anyone second? Ted Lyles. Thank you very much. Any questions, discussion, comments? Anyone wish to say?
Brendan Galvin, can you just explain what type of equipment would be included?
What we use it for?
Thank you. If anyone in the General Assembly has that answer, feel welcome to approach a microphone and answer.
Meredith, yeah, go ahead, Meredith.
Up in the balcony.
So 1 second, Meredith, are you a resident of the town of Bristol? Okay, does anyone object to Meredith speaking to answer that question? This is Meredith McFarland, our Recreation Department Director. Hearing no objections, you may go ahead and speak.
So the equipment would be...
I think the microphone's not live. Hold on a second. Tap it.
Sean's coming to your rescue.
In the meantime, folks that have your town reports, there is an explanation on page 63.
Check, check. All right, so some of the equipment that the Recreations Department would need or to replace, for example, the gymnastics program that we have, there's probably just already about $5,000 worth of equipment that we've had probably since 2015 or older. Darla could say anything to that. And so the wear and tear, especially since COVID, when everybody started to use equipment, say the skate park or just this building itself. So the use of all of our equipment is definitely getting to its life end. The other thing is the mountain bike programs that we've created for the last 4 years have grown increasingly. We have a bike library, and that equipment's going to need to be taken care of maintenance-wise as well. So, and that's a big number too. And shop, but there is still a price that comes along with that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Amendments? Want to give them more? All right, not hearing any. All those in favor of Article 10, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Article 10 passes. Just a reminder, there are refreshments in the back. Feel free if you need to get up, get some sugar, get some coffee. We're going to keep on rolling. Article 11, will the voters appropriate the following sums to be placed in various town reserve fund accounts as needed? Reserve funds, the Capital Highway Equipment Fund, $135,000, the Capital Sidewalk Fund, $40,000, the Capital Fire Equipment Fund, $25,000, the Capital Fire Vehicle Fund, $125,000, the Capital Technology Fund, $7,000, the Capital Building and Maintenance Fund, $30,000, the Capital Road Fund, $50,000, the Reappraisal Fund, $15,000, the Capital Paving Fund, $135,000, and the Conservation Fund, $10,000, for a total of $572,000. Will anyone move this article? And that was Chris Purley. A second. Thank you, Sarah. Any discussion, comments, questions? Yes, Claire Wallace, please take the microphone.
Ann Wallace.
Ann Wallace, of course.
Yeah.
Totally different person, my mistake.
Yeah, no, we get mixed up, our mail gets mixed up all the time.
Sorry.
I just have a big kind of, because, is this what we appropriate every year to go into those funds to make sure we have enough when we need a new fire engine or whatever? That's
Correct.
my very dumb question.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's almost always the same. It's a little higher this year. Last year was 567,000, and this year it's 572.
There are no dumb questions.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Any other questions, comments, snide remarks? All right. Hearing none, we will go ahead and vote on Article 11. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Article 11 passes. Article 12, will the voters approve an appropriation of $218,360 for the Lawrence Memorial Library for its annual operating budget, the said sum to be raised by taxes? Will someone move Article 12? Ann Wallace, thank you very much. Second. Oh, so many seconds. How do I choose? All right, Jessica Teets, I saw you go first. All right, any discussion, comments, love letters to the library?
Page 103 is the library report for this year, or for 2023.
Thank you. Not hearing or seeing any, we will go ahead and vote on Article 12. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Article 12 passes. The library gets its money. Article 13, will the voters appropriate the following sums in support of the Bristol-based organizations listed below, with said amounts level funded or lowered from the prior year, pursuant to 24 VSA, Section 2691. The following organizations: Bristol Cemetery Association Incorporated, $29,000. Bristol Core, $10,000. Bristol Family Center, $4,000. Bristol Historical Society, $2,500. The Bristol Little League Baseball and Softball, $2,000. Bristol Recreation Club, $15,000. Bristol Town Band, $1,200. And NEAT, Northeast Addison Television, $3,500 for a total of $67,200. Will somebody move Article 13? Ted Lyles, thank you. Anybody second? Gentleman in the cap, your name? Howard Jennings, thank you very much. Any questions, comments, discussion on this article? Not hearing or seeing anything, we will go ahead and vote on Article 13. Those in favor of Article 13 say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Moving on to Article 14. Will the voters approve $8,500 for the Bristol 4th of July Committee to organize the parade, the fireworks, and events on the town green and recreation field? Anybody move this Article 14? And that's, thank you very much. Second? Your name? Thank you, Wendy, very much. Wendy Wilson. Any comments, discussion, questions? Yes, Ann Wallace, go ahead and take the microphone.
It's just a sort of curiosity. Why aren't 14 and 15 included in the Bristol, the Article 13?
They were an increase this year, sorry.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
That's why.
It's a 3-year process of it being warned as a separate article, and then it will be included in the list.
Yes, Mr. Lyles. He said, so those, he wasn't at the microphone, Mr. Lyles commented that those numbers were increased 2 years ago.
Correct, but it's a 3-year process where it's an individual warrant, yeah.
Any other comments, questions, discussion? All those in favor of Article 14, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Article 14 passes. Article 15, will the voters appropriate $6,000 to the Have a Heart food shelf for providing food and essential items free of charge to any person living in the 5-town area of Addison County? That includes Bristol, Lincoln, Moncton, New Haven, and Starksboro. Will someone have a motion right here? And your name? Deborah Dickerson, thank you very much. A second. Thank you, Catherine. Catherine Wilson. Any discussion or comments on this article? Yes, Catherine.
Just curious.
Microphone,
Oh, I'm
Catherine.
sorry. Yes, I have to come up and speak in the microphone. People who are watching on Zoom cannot hear you unless you're on the microphone.
Glasses to see, but I can't see it when I have the glasses on. So, I'm just curious what the amount for the food shelf was last year, if this is an increase.
It was the same,
It's the same?
yes. So sometimes it will be an increase, well, it's an increase and then becomes its own individual article, similar to the 4th of July. This is the second year of that process. It'll be an article next year, and then it will go to this sort of individual list, including multiple organizations.
Okay, and is then that when it could be increased? So,
If it's increased, then it remains an article. It's something where you need to get signatures to increase it, and then it becomes, again, begins a 3-year process as its own unique article.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks.
Great, thank you. Right here. Is there a question from someone in this area? No, okay. Any other questions, comments, discussions on Article 15? Not seeing any, let's vote. Those in favor of Article 15, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Article 15 passes. Article 16, will the voters appropriate $750 to the Addison Allies Network Incorporated for migrant farm workers living in Addison County? Would someone like to move that? Ann Wallace, thank you very much. Would someone like to second? Oh, lots of, I've forgotten your name? Thank you. Any comments, questions, or discussion on this article?
Hi, Carol Price. I'm here to represent Addison Allies, which is a group that is supporting migrant farm workers throughout Addison County. You know, we have a lot of farm workers in Bristol and throughout the county. An example of what we do, we teach English to people that are interested in learning. We bought $12,000 worth of barn boots and distributed them this year. There has been a lot of work on making sure that farm workers had access to vaccines and other health care. We provide a lot of rides to doctor's appointments, to the Open Door Clinic and up to services in Burlington. And they've started a new program giving new farm workers that arrive $200 because they don't get paid right away when they arrive. And I'm told there's a lot of families coming too.
Thank you. Yes, please approach the microphone and state your first and last name.
I'm Robert Demick, and I've been in construction for quite a while, and hopefully I'm just about done with that. But I just want to bring up the fact that in construction and many other hand-to-mouth jobs, we need workers, and there's a plethora of people trying to get in this country and work, and I've worked with some of them, and it's difficult to know when you're legal and when you're not. And for the most part, this state has been inviting to workers and found ways for us to put many of them to work, but it's something that we all need to start thinking about as more of our youth starts doing computer work, and we're needing physical labor out there. And I've used some, and it's been both to my benefit and theirs. And if we can kind of regulate that a little bit better, we can help them to earn their way, and it'll work. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions, or comments? Yes. Please approach a microphone so that those on Zoom can also hear you.
Again, my name is Cecil Foster, and Addison County's slogan years ago was Addison County, the land of milk and honey, and agriculture has been a huge part of this county for centuries. And unfortunately, the family farms are rapidly disappearing, and they just keep getting larger and larger, and the farmers are finding it more and more difficult to find people to work for them, and so they've relied upon the migrant workers coming in. And I think that it's very, very important that we continue to support the farming community, and in turn, these migrant workers need our support. So I'd like to propose an amendment to the request to go from $750 to $1,500. I think they need more money.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I hear a second to that amendment? I see many seconds, so let me see. Oh, I don't know who to choose. So many good choices. Ooh, raise your hand the highest. Okay. Carol Wilson, I'm going to take you as our second. Catherine Wilson. I'll get names right. All right, so that's an amendment. We now have discussion on the amendment. The amendment is to change the amount from 750 to 1,500. Any discussion on that amendment? Not seeing or hearing any discussion, we're going to vote first on the amendment, and then we'll vote on the article as a whole. So those in favor of amending this from $750 to $1,500, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. I will now ask for any further discussion about this article as it has been amended to $1,500. Anybody else wish to be heard? All right, let's go ahead and vote on the article as amended. I'll read it since it was amended. Will the voters appropriate $1,500 to the Addison Allies Network Incorporated for migrant farm workers living in Addison County? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The article passes as amended. Article 17. Will the voters appropriate $3,000 to the Charter House Coalition that provides emergency shelter and has outreach programs for individuals and families in need? Would anyone like to move this article? Yes, state your name. Thank you. Who would second? Way in the back? Yep. Thank you very much. Discussion, comments, questions on Article 17? Not seeing or hearing any, I will move it to vote. Article 17, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Article 17 is passed. Article 18, will the voters appropriate $1,500 for Habitat for Humanity Addison County to build affordable, energy efficient, and sustainable homes for eligible families? Will someone move this article? In the back there, red? Thank you. Second? Ted Lyles, I saw a hand up first. Any discussion, comments, questions on Article 18? Not seeing or hearing any, I'll move it for vote. Will those in favor of Article 18 please say aye? Aye. Opposed? Nay. The ayes have it. Article 18 is passed. Article 19. Will the voters appropriate $22,692 to the Bristol Rescue Squad to support emergency services? Will someone move this? Right in front? Thank you. Second? Again, Ted's right in my line of view. Are you going to get a lot of seconds? Ted Lyles. Discussion, comments on Article 19? Questions? Yes, please take the microphone. I saw Ann Wallace first, and then Jessica Tietz, you're up next.
I just feel compelled to say that for the second time in my residence in Bristol, which has been, I can't remember, 45 years, I used these services, and they are superb. And I don't understand how this service can continue to be offered, because I know lots of people are too busy to volunteer, but I just cannot say enough about how excellent this service is and how worthy it is for our small town.
Thank you.
And I just had a question. I wasn't clear what we were voting on outside of the budget. So is this a special service or something that doesn't go in the normal budget?
They're not a town entity, they're a private enterprise.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion on Article 19? Not seeing any, I will move it to vote. Those in favor of Article 19 say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Article 19 passes. Article 20. Will the voters appropriate the following sums in support of the organizations listed below, with the said amounts level funded or lowered from the prior year pursuant to 24 VSA Section 2691? Here we go. It's a long list. Addison County Home Health and Hospice, $4,700. Addison County Parent-Child Center, $4,800. Addison County Readers, $2,000. Addison County Restorative Justice Services, $1,150. Addison County Riverwatch Collaborative, $300. Age Well, 2,700. The Atria Collective, which was formerly Women's Safe, 3,500. Counseling Service of Addison County, 3,875. Elderly Services, 2,200. Homeward Bound, 1,000. Hope, which is helping overcome poverty's effects, 3,250. The John W. Graham Shelter, 1,400. Open Door Clinic, 1,000. Retired Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, and Green Mountain Foster Grandparent Program, 750. Tri-Valley Transit, 11,306. Turning Point Center of Addison County, 3,000. And Vermont Adult Learning, 1,650, for a total of $48,581. Would anybody move Article 20, please? Way in the back, I saw Chris Purley. Do I have a second? I saw Ann Wallace here. Okay. Damn it, did I get it right? Oh, I swore. Okay. Any comments, discussion, or questions on Article 20?
Reports for almost all of those organizations can be found page 122 of the town report. And this, generally in the past, when creating the town report, we rely on organizations submitting reports, and what we receive, we've put into the report. This year, I made it a point to reach out to every organization that's on our appropriation list and get a report from them. So we have that's why the town report is a few more pages than it was last year. But it's also in preparation for Article 21.
Any comments, questions, discussion on Article 20? Not seeing or hearing any, I will move it for vote. Those in favor of Article 20 say aye. Aye. Those opposed to Article 20 say nay. The ayes have it. Article 20 passes. Article 21, as Ian was just alluding to, I will read. Will the voters authorize the use of Australian ballot for voting on the civic/social services appropriations starting with the 2025 town meeting? First, I'm looking for somebody to move Article 21. Who was that? Oh, Mr. Chris Purley. Second, did I see Beth Cruz raise her hand? Yes, we'll take that as a second. And I know I see you way in the back behind the brownies, but it's so dark back there. Mike Brown. Thank you, Mike. So we've got first and a second. Any discussion, comments, or questions? Yes, go ahead, stand, approach the microphone, and start with your name first and last.
My name is Sarah Granstrom. When you say vote by Australian ballot, do you mean that the articles starting with Article 13 through 20 would appear in that very similar format for an up or down vote? Or would each organization be listed individually?
Each individual.
Each individually.
Individually on the ballot.
Well, that's a long ballot.
Yes. Okay. So we're asking for a vote on this to make it similar to what happened during COVID, when we didn't have town meeting, we had Zoom meetings, but then the following day, on voting day, you could vote for each individual organization. And so that's why I sort of wanted to prepare a longer town report this year to sort of get the reports from organizations so you could make an informed choice going forward, because if this passes, that's what each individual voter is able to do.
And this also happens in other communities.
Right.
I'm going to have Sarah Stott speak first. She raised her hand and you're recognizing her first. Go ahead.
Just a clarification on that. So that means that next year, if this passes, we won't see this list and we won't have discussion in public about the groups. So nobody could stand up in front. I mean, so we would just see on a ballot and people would vote yes or no. If that's the case, my concern would be that a lot of people might vote no or not vote. And so we'd have a lot less support for organizations than this nice group of activists or people who care, would vote for things. Was that taken into consideration?
It was. And we felt, I think as a board, to be able to offer it to as many people as possible, given the limited amount of people that attend town meetings, the number unfortunately drops every year. And so a very small minority of voters are making decisions for the entire town. But it's also, you run the risk of having more people who are not informed about particular articles voting on them or not voting on them, so that it was considered. And part of our mission is to inform people in the best way we can as a town, so people are informed when they go to the polls and vote.
And just as a point of interest, when it was on the ballot, they were all voted for. They were all voted in easily.
Thank you. Go ahead, speak your name onto the microphone and then your comment.
Brendan Galvin, I guess that was mostly covered, and I guess I think I appreciate the thought process in it, and my question was like the why to go to this, but it sounds like a transparency thing and trying to get more people involved. I think the only other thing to think about is probably a lot of people coming to vote that are only coming to vote tomorrow aren't probably reading this. That's the trade-off.
Mr. Bernstein, go ahead and approach.
Thank you. Well, I always thought this was a little cumbersome at town meeting, but the impetus to change would go for everything on town meeting. And I would rather have town meeting than voting by paper ballot. So that the same argument that you've made for changing this could be used for a general fund budget or everything else. And so I urge us to defeat this so we can keep on the path of having an active town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'm going to have you hold, Sean. I recognize the woman behind you. No, I recognized you.
Vicki Coyle. I appreciate that thought process, and I think good government is always about trying to figure out what your next move is and how to keep people engaged and be transparent to the community. So I do appreciate that. On the other hand, I do think, having stood up and tried to get signatures for certain programs, there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction about, oh, heck no, I'm not signing that. Our taxes are already high enough. And so I tend to think that there's going to be a little bit more of that if it's on the ballot, as opposed to here, where people can hear the rationale behind it, hear from some of the advocates that folks have pointed out. And this is government, and people need to choose to participate. If they choose not to participate, that's their decision. And you guys can open the doors, but you're not otherwise going to get people who are just choosing not to participate. So I would not be in favor of putting it on the ballot in order to have people do more of a knee-jerk reaction. Regardless of what you said, it was voted in easily before. That's likely not going to continue, I think, as taxes go up.
Thank you. Sean, go ahead and approach and state your last name.
Sean Kimball. How would amendments work for that? Would they be removed, like how we amended a few of these articles?
Correct.
Right. You would be able to amend them.
Yeah, and there's no, if this is the direction that people vote in, there's no reason why we couldn't have discussion at town meeting about organizations and about their budgets or the amount that they're asking for. It just, you wouldn't be voting on them that evening. You would be voting the next day.
Yeah, they would still be listed in the town report.
Yes, and we could still have a discussion about them. We wouldn't be making a decision that evening. Similar to having discussion about candidates who are running. Candidates are free to come up and speak in front of the audience. So I think we still could have that discussion. It just, the voting process would happen the next day.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Krista Seringo. The mic is too high. I think this is a needle we're going to be trying to thread, as we go forward with trying to make sure we have maximum participation, but also recognizing the power of this space. I think what most concerns me is separating out just these appropriations for Australian ballot versus the town budget and all of the other things we're voting on. Because my concern would be that if those are the only things folks can vote on, and they're looking for a way to control what we all know are just, increasingly high property taxes, that they might take that reaction out on these very deserving organizations.
Richard Woods. A couple of questions. If this does pass, is there a way to make the town report available online?
It is.
It is now.
Yeah.
It is online?
Yeah, it is online.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
I'm a bit skeptical about this. I understand what you're trying to do. I assume that this does not mean that this will be the case forever. So if we find that organizations are suffering because of just kind of knee-jerk votes, we could bring it back to an on the town meeting agenda.
Yes, it could be brought up and it could be an article for a future town meeting to reverse the process.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I'm Howard Jennings. If we do choose to discuss and propose an amendment to one of these funding articles, is there logistically any way to get that onto the Australian ballot for the voting the next day?
No, unfortunately not, just because of the printing of the ballots. So there could be discussion, but there couldn't be changes made, similar to what we've seen here this evening.
Would anyone else like to be heard? Yes, in the back there. Start with your name.
I'm Matt Sharp. I'm just curious if this is on the Australian ballot, is this going to be as one group like it is now, or individual for each organization to vote up or down?
Individual.
And if they want, are they going to have to warn every year and ask for some amount, or like it is now, will their requested amount stay on as the amount of previous unless they choose to raise it?
They only have to get a petition if they change the amount. If they keep the same amount, they just have to let us know they're applying for the same amount.
So they'll be on the ballot in the future if they don't change the amount.
They have to let us know that they want to continue, but yes,
Okay.
they will stay the same.
All right, well, I'm in general concerned that we would bring this to the ballot and not bring other things on the ballot for reasons others stated, so I'd urge us to vote this down.
Cecil Foster, come on up.
Thank you, Cecil Foster again. My only concern about this is this going to be the end of town meeting? If you look at the number of articles that are on here, tonight we had the town budget, which was a large figure, and there was no discussion to speak of. It was approved. There was other large sums of money with very little discussion that were just approved. And I think that if we do away with if we put all of these articles, lump them out and put them on the Australia ballot, there won't be really any need at all to have the town meeting. And that's a question I was actually asked by somebody up there to bring this forward tonight. Should we consider not having a town meeting or changing the town meeting venue from tonight to, say, a Saturday? If you look in this room, if you guys could humor me, anybody that's under 60, could you please stand up? Okay, so we got, all right. I think there was 12. I think there was 12 people here under the age of 60, which leaves the rest of us, there's about 85 to 90 of the people. I was keeping track for inventory purposes for how many cookies to bake for next year. Curious as, don't laugh, Fern. I'm curious as to if we moved it to a daytime. I know it's a challenge for me at this time of night to be alert and to be clear thinking. If we had it during the daytime, say on a Saturday, would we have more attendance? And then maybe if you didn't have the idea that you had to, it's already a half an hour past my bedtime. If we were talking at 1 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, perhaps we'd have more discussion and interaction, which I know would make your guys job that much more challenging, because the last thing you need is for us up here to challenge your numbers. But anyways, it's just kind of a question. I for one think that we shouldn't be doing away with it. I think that, it would have, I had the opportunity to make the amendment to raise it from 750 to 1,500 for the migrant workers, and looking at the number of people that wanted to second it, there was a lot of people that felt that was a good idea. If we had that on an Australian ballot, that wouldn't have happened, and these people would have gone home with $750 less than they had. So I think that we need to continue to have dialogue, and we're not going to have that with an Australian ballot. And if we're not, then we're just going to be Connecticut or New Jersey and not have town meetings, just have everything on Tuesdays, go to the polls. So it's a way of life. All right, thank you.
I would say in our discussions, there was never any talk of not having town meeting. It was only the appropriations that we felt could be moved to Australian ballot. I don't have any intent of there not being a town meeting. I enjoyed town meeting a great deal. I came to my first one, I guess, 15 years ago when I moved here, and that was maybe my second year that I lived in town, and it was great. I loved it. And I still love Bob standing up and giving his speech at the beginning of the meeting. I always enjoy that, and it's been happening for the last 15 years for me, and it's been great. So we don't have any intent, but we are open, I think, to discussing potential changes to change it to a different day and different time. Like we'd be willing to listen to people's thoughts on that, and are willing to change it and make those changes.
Mr. Bernstein, go ahead and approach again. I don't see anyone else. So I'm going to actually have you sit down a second because you've spoken once. I want to give everyone else a second. So go ahead and you can approach and state your name. Mr. Demick, Rob Demick, go ahead.
Robert Demick is my name. I have not attended as many of these meetings as I should have, but I have attended 10 or so. I've been here a long time. But I do read when it's online. I read as much as I can about it online. So I come relatively informed when I come on the voting day. But every time I do come here, I see more that I wouldn't see online, and I don't see online. So I'm not in favor of this, moving this article forward.
Thank you. In the very back, in the mask.
Hi, I'm Barbara Deal, and I know almost all of these outfits. I've worked for several of them, and I know that all of these people put their hearts and souls into these every day. And so I would like to be sure that all of their names are seen on every vote. So I would be in favor of voting against Article 21 for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara, I think I can speak for the board. There was no whatsoever discussion that we didn't think any of these organizations were worthy. It was trying to get more people involved. I've been coming for 48 years now, town meeting, since I turned 18, and the group gets smaller and smaller. And I commend the lady, I didn't get I don't remember your name when you said trying to get more people involved. We've tried, and I've got mixed emotions on this. I really do, because I think it's going to be the death of town meeting. I really do. I hate to say it, but when you take it away, but I hear it out there that I can't go, I can't do this or that. And I like Cecil's idea. I don't know if it's worked or not in Starksboro, because they did it Saturday at 1 o'clock or noon. I don't know. Hold up, Bob. But 65 people here tonight, 70 people decided $3 million, $4 million, $3 million.
Well,
And there's
65 people are going to make a decision on whether we go Australian ballot or not.
Right, and 65 people are
You
going
know, we have, I don't know how many voters we have, but what do we got, 10% here?
I mean, if we
Maybe
made
20?
if we maybe made an amendment to this that said that we should put it on Australian ballot to vote it future, and let the whole town decide where do you want to go. But the group gets smaller and smaller every year.
The gentlewoman in the back row, the glasses on her head, please approach the microphone and state your first and last name.
Katie Raycroft-Meyer, and I just wanted to reinforce what Cecil said about really considering or just weighing the options for doing a Saturday town meeting, because I actually work for regional planning, and so I see what other towns do, and with the Saturday meeting, you can get a lot of families, younger, and even just younger folks that are going to see the process. Now, it's a change, but I think it might be a good change to try, because there's a lot of other options you can do when you are doing it during the day and on the weekend.
Thank you. The gentleman here.
Peter Marsh. And I lived in Starksville up until about 4 years ago, and we moved to Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning, and the numbers did not change significantly from Tuesday night. So we had no change, really. And we continue to have a minority of voters coming in to do the Australian ballots on Tuesdays. So it didn't help us much.
Thank you. Mr. Bernstein, go ahead.
Yes, I think we're almost ready to vote, but I will offer, and I meant to earlier in this discussion, that I happened to drive by Cornwall's town meeting this past Saturday, and there was a remarkable amount of cars there. I was very surprised. Went both ways. I saw it both ways, about an hour apart. I don't know how many they got, but I suspect there were more at that meeting than there are at this meeting. That's a guess, and I wouldn't really know. But what I really mean to say is, yes, I feel, let's see, that town meeting and discussion face-to-face is a good old tradition here, and it does us all well, not just the government. It's good for us to be able to come to this. So increase participation in various ways, perhaps, and vote this down, which any move to take away some power from some entity, which this would do, it would take away the power from whenever we have the meeting, will hurt the meeting, and that's why I am especially voting against this.
Go ahead, Beth Cruz, come on up and approach the microphone. Thank you, Sean.
For folks that don't know, the town meeting, the form of governing with town meetings have been going on since the 1700s. So if anyone might not know that, it's been that long for a town meeting.
Would anyone else like to be heard before I call this question and we take a vote? Not seeing any hands, I'm going to call the question and take the vote. Article 21, will the voters of Bristol authorize the use of Australian ballot for voting on the Civic Social Services appropriation, starting with the 2025 town meeting? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. The nays have it. Article 21 fails. Article 22, we are in the home stretch. Will the voters renew the exemption of the Libanus Lodge number 47, the Masons Lodge, for its property located at 4 Elm Street for real estate taxes for a period of 5 years pursuant to 32 VSA section 3840? Would someone like to move this article? Who's that in front of Chris Purley? I see a hand.
Eric.
Thank you. Who would like to second? Thank you. Any discussion, comments, questions on Article 22? You have to come up to the microphone.
Catherine Wilson, just a quick explanation of why? Just so I understand.
By state statute, every 5 years, you have to vote to take them off so that we don't charge them property tax. They're a nonprofit, so like the Legion, the Rec Field, the Bristol Rescue are a few of the others that are, yeah.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion? All right, not hearing any. All those in favor of Article 22 say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Article 22 passes. Article 23, will the voters authorize the purchase of 4.7 acres located at the corner of Hewitt Road and Route 116 from Thomas and Pamela Lathrop for the purpose of constructing a new public works facility? A down payment of $17,000, which is 10% of the $170,000 purchase price, would be paid at closing from the Capital Building and Maintenance Reserve Fund, and the $153,000 principal balance would be paid over a 10-year period at a 6% simple interest rate, with annual payments of approximately $24,000. Would someone like to move Article 23? Chris Purley, I'll hear you second, and who is that in the back corner? Thank you very much. So, discussions, questions, comments on Article 23? Yes, come up and say your name.
Yeah, Linda Andrews, and I'm just wondering if this is a floodplain and how it would affect it?
It's a floodplain.
It is not in the floodplain.
Go ahead.
Brendan Galvin. I just have a question. So the 170,000 is for the 4.7 acres of land. Is there any structures, or is it just the land?
Just the land.
And do you have any, can you guys speak to what the plan is for the future? Like projected building costs, anything like that?
We have not had a cost yet of building site. We had Breadloaf do an extensive study to try to stay at 72 Pine Street. And between the Green Barn, as we all know, is the Old Town Barn, and the other one, which was the Village Barn, now they're all one. That in-between spot was where the old original landfill, when we were all real young, and they did borings, and we'd have to remove it was going to cost us about $600,000 just to get the earth ready to take a building, and we thought we needed to look somewhere else. If you've been in our old buildings, we've pieced them together just about long enough, and I'll be honest with you, there'll probably be a bond for a new public works building probably within 5 years.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just curious if the select board
I'm
had
going to have
talked.
you pause and say your name for the record.
Oh, sorry, Jessica Teets. I was just wondering if the select board had talked to any of the neighboring towns. I know New Haven is also thinking about a public works building. I know that Lincoln's transportation, whatever that entity is called, is small, and they're thinking about expanding it. Did the select board talk to any of the surrounding towns? Are there ways that we could try to share these costs with a neighbor?
We haven't talked with any other towns. I don't know how it would work sharing space. I mean, the building would obviously have to be twice as big, so I don't know if that would be feasible or not.
It might be worth a conversation, though, just because it's not an emergency service, so how close it is to town wouldn't impact things. Unlike the fire department or something like that, where, having it far away from town would impact the service quality.
Thank you. Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Dave Sharp. So generally speaking, owning property is not a bad idea. My question has to do with, is the intent here to replace all of the town facilities that are now at the end of Pine Street, where the dump used to be and the transfer station, and there's a storage of salt and gravel and whatnot there? Is the intent to move that all away from that premise? Because I have heard recently about residents on Pine Street concerned about the big trucks going back and forth on Pine Street all the time, disrupting, comfort in people's trailers that sit there, mobile homes that sit there on one side of Pine Street. So I'm curious what the intent here is. Is it to move all the facilities
off of Pine Street, or are there still going to be trucks going up and down Pine Street hauling gravel and salt?
I think in our discussions, the majority of infrastructure that's there now would move to the new location. And we haven't had extensive discussions in terms of what might stay. There are buildings there that have lived their useful life, but there are also structures there that are still good. And so we would have discussions about if those structures would remain what they're used for now or potentially turn into something else. But the idea is to move the majority of that infrastructure to the new location. And so I think if you're living in that area, you would see a large reduction in traffic for heavy vehicles.
Part of the preliminary discussion revolved around moving the truck traffic out of that area.
Mr. Bernstein, go ahead and approach. I'm sorry.
Thank you. In general, I don't like to have to think this through without a further plan for town facilities. It seems to me that we're lacking and being asked to piecemeal without a plan. One point, I wanted the town plan to actually include possible public facilities and tell us where they should go, but I got nowhere with that many years ago. And I don't like buying this, even though I think it's there's a lot of reason to it, which some of you have already pointed out, a few of them. But I'm not happy because we're going to make this decision and we're not going to know either the future of the current location. We're not going to know the cost of the building. We're not going to know the cost of a police facility or a lease for a police facility. There may be others I'm not thinking of at the moment. But of course, the school is talking about, the school district is talking about a building also. So it's the piecemeal aspect of this that has me most concerned. I'm not sure I'd vote against this for that, because you've got to make some move, or it is thought that you have to make some move and can't live with a facility that we have. I don't know why we can't, for one thing, but I know we're not moving forward if we do that. Having said that, I think that this property was once town property and was bought at a tax sale. So I think we already own this once. Is that correct?
No.
Just the very corner, there was an old house on that corner, and it was just a little small parcel. It wasn't the 4.7.
But the 4.7 includes the house site on the corner, the former house site.
Yes, the former house site. I think that house.
So
site
part of the property was owned by the town, or could have been owned by the town. It was 30 years ago. I was at the tax sale, so I remember.
It was probably 100 square feet, 100 by 100 lot.
We called it the Prime House, if I remember right.
I didn't want to say the name, but yes, Bob, you're correct.
Okay. Well, I'm just pointing, let's see, this has very little to do with the decision, but it does concern me a little bit to think that we could have bought it for $30,000 or something like that. But it was a long time ago.
We could have bought a piece of it. Robert, we could have bought a piece of it.
Another thing to mention about this venture or proposed venture is it will take that property off the tax rolls, and that property at 4.7 acres in a good commercial site could be a valuable site to bring in tax money. So I know you know that, and I guess you've counted that as a bridge we have to cross. I'm not sure I think that, so I really don't know what to think, but I do see these aspects of it, and I'm glad to air the
gentlewoman here in the jumper.
Holly Wilson. So I don't want to sound like a NIMBY, but this is kind of what it's going to end up sounding like now that I've thought about it. But I drive by that property every day. And all the time that I drive by, one of the things that I've been thinking about since they closed the lumberyard was this corner piece because it is zoned commercial, could end up being a Dollar General or something similar, you know? And it's not that there's not a need for that, it's just that we have Middlebury 6 miles away, Virgin's 11 miles away. There's lots and lots and lots of Dollar General kind of businesses already. And I personally really think that when I read about it in the paper last week, I thought, this is exactly what really the town of Bristol should be doing. I mean, it's got this, warehouse, it's the mill warehouse on it. That's, if anyone's ever been in it, it's spacious. There's a lot that can be done with that building without having to do a whole change in infrastructure. I mean, if you were to take all of the equipment out of the stuff on Pine Street next week, you could start operating very easily from this, from this property. And I think that it would be probably one of the most wise moves. We are looking at, the school district wants to build another building, and, there's other things that, that are requiring building. But this one is one that could be really useful on so many levels, especially if you have to actually work with the maintenance of trying to keep the equipment that keeps our streets, well kept. So I say I'm in favor of this.
I believe you're on the wrong side of the road. We're looking at the open lot on the opposite side of the road, not where the current.
But the house is on.
No, the open piece of property on the north side of Hewitt Road in between Hilltop Precision and the old Maple.
That's too bad. You should look at the one on the other side.
Someone has a purchase and sales on that and on that property. So we were.
I would like to say though that we're looking to lock the land down so that we don't lose it. We've looked for property that we, as Bob said, we know this is coming off the tax rolls. We're very aware of that. We've looked for property where we thought this would fit and it wouldn't impact the neighborhood the way it impacts on Pine Street. We definitely would not go and build a building we can't go and build a building without taxpayer permission. So you would have a design and you would know what was going there and you would have a say in it. This is just an attempt to have a piece of property so that we can move forward with a design and get something that'll serve the town for the future.
And for reference, we did look at the piece of property that was described, but it was deemed not suitable for the particular operation for the town buildings and the Department of Public Works.
So you just answered my question. Okay.
All right, so I have someone who's asked to call the question, and if I am remembering, that requires a 2/3 vote, so all in favor of calling the question, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Question's called. Now we're going to actually vote. So those in favor of Article 23, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Article 23 passes. Article 24, this is your opportunity as citizens to make a motion. It would be non-binding on the town and the select board, but you can bring up any topics that you wish to have the select board consider. So you could make a motion and then we can have a discussion on that. So I see a hand here, so if you'd like to approach the microphone.
Sure. Hi, Krista Siringo. I don't know if I want to make a motion, and I'm not sure if this was the time to bring this up.
That's fine.
When I was on page 68, looking at the Board of Listers report, it made me think about our need to have reappraisals done, and I'm glad this report is in there, and it says that the town is looking to complete a reappraisal in the next few years, and I guess I would just ask the board to consider doing it sooner rather than later. Our neighboring towns have several of them have completed them or will be very soon. And the impact on our education taxes is significant in Bristol because we are not at 100% of the common level of appraisal. So I think it's important that we look to get that done.
Kristen, they have reached firms, they're talking with firms, and right now they're telling them they're 2 to 3 years out.
Yeah,
There's just not
okay.
enough firms in Vermont.
So we've put the
there's a
request
bill
out
in
there
the
at least. It's more a matter of capacity then.
Yeah, sorry, I overstepped you. What'd you say?
No, so it sounds like what you're saying is the timing here is based on availability of getting
Correct.
it done, not on
And
that
they're-
we're considering getting it done. Okay.
Yeah, and
that's
they're
great.
waiting for the legislature is actually looking at taking it all over in towns. They're going to have it.
So the state-
PV&R will do it all.
Yep, well, that would be great.
I don't know where that is. I wish we'd ask Caleb that, but I don't know where that bill is in the legislature at this time.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you. It doesn't have to be a motion, resolution. You can also make comments at this point. Would anybody else like to speak? Yes, come on up.
Hi, Mara Donnelly. Thanks for opening up a little bit like that. Sorry, this is weird. I'm just going to do this. I would just like to make a pitch for the Bristol Mentor Program. I coordinated at the elementary school, and I'd love if anybody who is a mentor in the room could stand up for a second, either here at Bristol or moved on to Mount Abe. We have some awesome volunteers. Oh, I think Wendy's left and Liz left. We had a lot of us with buttons on. Oh, Ron is one, yay! But there's some flyers, brochures in the back. It's an awesome program. It really supports the kids in our community. It's really 1 hour, right? Sarah can attest to that. You just go up to the school and eat lunch and play Uno with a kid every Wednesday. And that kid, you will have a tremendous impact on that child's life and therefore our whole community. So I encourage you, if you have a little time in your day, we're also a community program, so you can meet outside of school. But just let me know. My information's on the brochure there, so get in touch. We'd love to have more mentors, one for each of our kids. That would be awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Kristen. First of all, I understand you're retired, you're not running Krista, and thank you for your service on the board. As we're all going to vote on whether to buy the superintendent's office, the old Bristol Works. I don't know the answer, and people have asked me, is that going to be taxable? Because it's not, kids aren't in it. The school is tax exempt, but is the building taxable?
That's right, yes.
Okay, even though there's no children, students in that?
It will be tax exempt.
Okay, I know Middlebury College has to pay taxes on houses that they own in Middlebury, just because the college owns it. It's not all taxable, it's only the buildings that the education is being part of. And that's why I asked that question. I honestly don't know.
Would anyone else like to speak and be heard? David Sharp, come on up.
David knows the answer to that.
Unless you're going to get a cookie.
No, Dave Sharp, I would like to be heard. So first, I want to thank Krista for her service as chair of the Mount Abe Union District Board. That board has really done some really excellent work the last couple of years, and I want to thank her for that. Secondly, as I alluded to with the discussion that we had about the town buying property, the school has a question on their ballot about buying property, and I think it's really unfortunate that that we're not having a discussion about that where questions can't be asked and answered with regard to how wise a decision that is. My preliminary looking at it, it seems in the explanations from the district, seems like as reasonable as a decision as you asked us to make with regard to buying property for the town. like I said, buying properties is usually not a bad idea. It can be resold. The town can resell that piece of property if it's deemed to be not the best place for our works. And the school can also sell that property if it doesn't work out to be the best location for the district office. And so I think it's great that we're having this town meeting. I love Cecil's comments about the last thing we want to do is strip more decisions out of town meeting and kill town meeting off. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Speaking of retirements, I would like to thank Darla for her service, and she's moving on. From the board.
I wish I was retiring. Just from the board.
All right, seeing no one else, I will call this meeting in recess. We'll re-adjourn tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. for voting by Australian ballot. If anybody, Robert Bernstein, I was going to say, wants to wish and share a story about Tom Wallace or Mike Corey or anyone who's passed, this now is a time to do so. And I'm just going to open and share a story
I'll
about...
just open a quick one I won't go on. Mike Corey, of course, you know I drive school bus for the sports teams from Mount Abe, and when we always played down in Rutland, we always had to stop at Gill's Deli. We couldn't go to the McDonald's. We had to go to Gill's Deli. That was Mike's favorite. Everybody, I got to grind here because he was a Proctor. You know, Mike was a Proctor alum. So God bless you, Mike.
I'm going to take the bully pulpit and share a story about Tom Wallace. I purchased a camp on Lake Dunmore from him and Claire Wallace. It was a camp that they used as a rental property. And when he sold it to me, he asked me very earnestly, would I please continue to rent out this camp to a family of 10 who had been coming for years to this camp. And he really wanted them to be able to continue to enjoy the property after I bought it. And that's the kind of man Tom Wallace was, and Claire.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, and if you'd help put the chairs away, Select Board would really appreciate it. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Correct.
Eat cookies, eat brownies.